Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's the one and only, and we got some new Apple products, but they flew kind of under the radar. So Apple this time decided for October to release some new products via a press release. Now, they do this here and there, and you'll come to see that they did this for a very good reason, and that's, well, these products I don't think deserved a fully fledged event, to be honest. It was kind of lackluster. But for today's video, we kind of have one exciting new product, kind of, sort of, but there is a big downside to it. We do also see improvements to the iPad Pros, as well as the Apple TV, and a silly accessory that Apple just introduced, which is just, oh my goodness. So stay tuned, guys. This is going to be a quick one. I'm going to recap everything that's new, and of course, all of this will be ordered and reviewed here in the studio. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that, make sure to click that red subscribe button. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. All right, I may be looking off camera here for a second, and that's just because I got some notes. I don't want to miss anything. Just a quick general recap of everything that was introduced. So first off, let's start off with the new 10th generation iPad. Now, this used to be dubbed the budget iPad, and it was the last iPad in the lineup that featured a home button, but now that's been completely redesigned, and now the entire iPad lineup now has no home button on the front. So that's kind of exciting. So this new iPad does feature a 10.9-inch liquid retina display, so it's going to be all screen on the front, and Touch ID has been moved over to the top button. Of course, considering being a budget, if you will, iPad, and I'm going to discuss pricing in just a bit, it makes sense that Face ID isn't featured here. There's 4 gorgeous all new colors, and I'm really excited for the yellow option, but you can also opt for blue, pink, and the standard silver. Apple, in their little video that they made, claimed that it's roughly about the same size as the prior 9th generation iPad with that home button, so we're gonna have to wait to get it into the studio so we can see. This does feature the A14 Bionic, so not up to par. You're definitely not expecting to see the M1 nor the M2 here, but A14 is gonna be snappy enough for most individuals, and once again, this iPad is catered to a lot of students and casual consumers who don't really need all that horsepower and generally just want an iPad to consume content, maybe make a PowerPoint, type up a Word document, and stuff of the sorts. Wi-Fi 6 is now finally featured on the 10th generation iPad, so do expect Wi-Fi speeds to be much faster. The cellular models, if you opt for them, do come now included with 5G. Personally, for me, I've never had a use to put cellular connectivity on any of my iPads, but hey, if you do have a use for it in your life, just rest assured that now you will have up to 5G speeds, and you can expect your web surfing and your productivity in general to increase as those speeds will be dramatically increased. Now, some of the bigger upgrades is to the camera department. So on the back side is a newly redesigned 12 megapixel high-res camera that is capable of 4K recording. Once again, the problem with the iPads, at least in my opinion, is that I never see anybody, nor do I ever record nor take pictures with my iPad. But I guess if it's the only device readily available, then I guess snapping a quick 4K resolution video of your current scene might be useful. So kind of excited about that. Come to think of it, I mean, the iPad lineup does have some pretty decent cameras, and not many people take full advantage of them, so who knows? I might start taking more pictures and videos on my iPad just to try it out, especially with these awesome new cameras. And speaking of, on the front, for the first time ever, Apple has now moved the front-facing camera from the top over to the side, and so that's really going to be for, you know, your Wi-Fi calls, FaceTime, Skype, anything of the sort, Zoom calls even. Yeah, I would say it's pretty cool, because if you've ever been on a FaceTime call while your iPad is in landscape mode, it never seems like whoever you're talking to on the phone or FaceTime or whatever is actually looking at you, and that's because the camera was always off to the side. So now it being front and center is kind of cool when in landscape mode. And with that, one of the reasons that they did change the camera is for their new Magic Keyboard Folio. So this I am kind of excited for. The Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pros is spectacular. I love it. It has that trackpad. It has some really nice tactile feedback whenever you're typing. It's just awesome. Plus that floating design is great. But now Apple has improved on it even more. So now it's going to have like a detachable part. I think it's going to be really nifty. And I never thought I'd see the day that a Magic Keyboard with a trackpad would be featured on the entry-level iPad. So rest assured, you already know that's going to make it over here to the studio, and I'm really excited to try out that combination. So that's the Magic Keyboard Folio, but we have to talk about price point. So this new budget iPad isn't so budget anymore, as it now starts at $449. Now, that's a big increase from before, whereas before it was in the $200 range. Now you're really easily treading into $500 territory and is more in line in terms of price point with the iPad mini. Again, you do get a ton of improvements here, Wi-Fi 6. You do now also have USB-C. So for those wondering, if you have the first generation Apple Pencil, comically, Apple has introduced a new adapter. It's $9 and it's an Apple Pencil 1 to USB-C adapter. It's kind of silly. I don't even know why it exists, but if you are stuck with a first generation Apple Pencil and decide to upgrade to this new redesigned 10th gen iPad, then I guess you can buy the adapter and you should be good to go. So that's the new iPad 10th generation. There's a lot of questions. So yes, I am going to feature a full review, unboxing, as well as a battery drain test, because now that the design has been redesigned, I mean, will it still reign as the battery drain champ? It has for about 4 or 5 years running. So with that new redesign, of course, means more pixels and of course means more battery consumption. So you'll just have to wait around to see. Oh yeah, and the new iPad 10th generation is going to get shipped with iPad OS 16, which comes with a lot of improvements to Apple Pencil connectivity, snappier. It's just your pretty generic OS upgrade. At least that's how I see it. So now let's move on to the iPad Pros, and here is where it was a snooze fest. So really, I mean, all we get is the M2, and already my main complaint with the iPad Pro line is that the M1 was already overkill, and now we have the M2 on par with the new iPad Airs and 13-inch MacBook Pro with Touch Bar. Now, hear me out. I still think that if you really are into professional applications, there may be some use cases for some individuals, especially pairing up the Magic Keyboard plus Pencil plus iPad Pro combination. The only issue with that is if you get all three of those, I'm talking the iPad Pro, the Apple Pencil 2, and the Magic Keyboard, I mean, you're damn well spending about $2,000 plus, it seems like, because the Magic Keyboard alone is like $350 if you were to get the 12.9-inch model and $300 for the smaller variant. So it really begs the question, why, Apple, are you introducing the M2? And moreover, I mean, is it overkill? For most people, it probably will be. Now, they did say that DaVinci Resolve will be introduced for the iPad Pro line sometime later this year. So that keeps me hopeful that maybe just one day Apple will introduce Final Cut Pro, you know, fully fledged desktop applications, Logic Pro on the iPad Pro. And then we can talk about the M2 being overkill, because I personally would use an iPad Pro over a MacBook in certain instances. Just depends on what I'm doing if those applications were offered. But sadly, at this present moment, it's not, and so the M2 is there. It's really overkill for most people, like I said. It really is a lackluster upgrade. Apple promises 15% improvements to the CPU versus the M1, and GPU performance-wise, you can expect to see up to a 35% increase. So in the event that you're, I don't know, maybe to game on the iPad Pros, you should expect the GPU performance to be much better. With the M2, everything's going to be a lot smoother, much snappier, but realistically, the M1 iPad Pros were already beasts of their own. I don't really see the need for the M2. ProRes is now featured on the iPad Pros though, so if you are into recording video on those massive iPads, then there is that as well in terms of an improvement. All Wi-Fi models are going to include Wi-Fi 6E now though, which Apple claims is up to 2 times as fast as the regular Wi-Fi 6. Once again, we're going to have to see some speed comparison tests here in the studio, and those tests will be mainly performed on the battery drain test to see what effect that has on the battery. Apart from that, cellular models now do also connect to 5G, but realistically, that is it. This is your typical S upgrade, if you will, for the iPad Pro line. Very lackluster, not much going on. Still starts at $799 for the 11-inch, and the 12.9-inch, if I'm not mistaken, starts at $1099. And okay, so I just checked, and once again, a big face palm from Apple. So those starting prices of $799 for the 11-inch and $1099 for the 12.9-inch is only for base 128 gigabytes of storage. This is getting a little ridiculous. 128 gigabytes when you're dishing out more than $1,000. Apple, come on. Let's increase that to at least 256 gigs. If you're going to slap the Pro moniker on this thing, I mean, it's just kind of redundant to include 128 gigs when the system storage on its own is going to take up about 1/10 of that, probably, if not more. So that's my main complaint. Apple really tries to nickel and dime their consumers because just for a little bit more money, you can upgrade to the 256 gigabyte model, but that's going to be an extra $100 additional charge in order to do so. So as you can see, it really starts to add up. I will review both of them, but don't expect any fireworks. It's your typical S upgrade, and there's really, honestly, not much going on here. That M2 chip will probably never be used to its fullest potential by 99% of people, but hey, ProRes is on there, I guess, and there's this new hovering technique for the Apple Pencil 2 thanks to the M2. I guess it's kind of cool. We're going to have to test that here in the studio. It's this new thing where instead of touching the actual tip to the iPad, you can hover over it, and certain applications will either animate or you can see a preview of a stroke that you're about to make. I mean, I guess in theory it sounds kind of cool, so I guess we're going to have to wait to see how that feature interacts in my day-to-day. Is that it though? Well, Apple actually didn't even go over it in their video that they made, but the Apple TV also sees an incremental upgrade as well. I know, surprise, right? But it seems that the Apple TV really never gets any attention. It's a very basic product, and it serves kind of just a sole purpose. So it really, I mean, I can see why Apple didn't go over it. So according to the newsroom, I actually even forgot what's new here. I mean, the Apple TV 4K, I have it myself, and it's pretty standard. You can only really add chip upgrades to that or redesign the remote, which they already did, and it was better than the old Siri remote by a mile. So what else is there to do on the Apple TV other than under the hood improvements? And that's exactly what Apple went for here. So according to Apple, this is the strongest Apple TV yet, and it features the A15 Bionic. And honestly, for the Apple TV, that's pretty crazy. A15, that's a better chipset than what the new 10th gen iPad comes with. Kind of crazy. It adds HDR10 Plus support and brings the best of Apple to the biggest screen in the home, all at a new starting price. So according to Apple, customers can order the new Apple TV 4K with Siri remote today at a new starting price of $129 with availability beginning Friday, November the 4th. So I guess Apple really is trying to push their Apple TV here. And honestly, I quite use my Apple TV regularly. It's very useful, especially when you want to AirPlay directly onto the Apple TV. Whether that's music or a YouTube video or whatever that you're watching on any OS device, including MacBooks, iPads, iPhones, you can essentially stream and mirror what's going on your display over to your Apple TV, and it proves useful in many circumstances. So kind of excited for this. I'm personally not going to upgrade. I'm still going to review it because I feel like a lot of people will find the power of the A15 pretty useful. And also with Apple Arcade, some of these games are starting to become more and more demanding in terms of RAM usage, and maybe some are very graphically intensive. So having that A15 chip in there should prove useful so that, you know, everything just runs a little smoother. But if you're upgrading from the prior Apple TV, it's really not that big of an upgrade. So guys, there you have it. Those are the new items introduced today by Apple. So we see two new iPad upgrades, one to the Pro line, which of course comes with the 11-inch and also the 12.9-inch. We see the new 10th generation iPad that now sees a huge makeover. Now the entire iPad lineup has no home buttons on the front, and they all feature, you know, the curved liquid retina displays, which is really nice. I'm still interested to see if the screen is still laminated to the front. I would hope that for dishing out near $500 it would be. At least that's what I'm expecting. New Apple TV and that silly adapter for the Apple Pencil. So guys, let me know what you guys think. This was a curveball. I was half expecting Apple to not make an event solely for this release in October. So sadly, we saw no upgrades to the MacBook. No mention about the new Mac Pro. So it was solely focused on the iPad line, plus they threw in an upgrade to the Apple TV. I'm most excited for the 10th generation iPad. Even though it is going to suck having to fork over more money, I am excited for the new redesign and also that awesome yellow color. So guys, drop all your thoughts down below. You guys should be seeing a little bit more of me here in the near future in your subscription feed. I'm very sorry, I've been caught up with midterms and a family emergency just presented itself, so that's why I've been a little MIA. But guys, as always, click that like button as it helps this channel out a lot. Hit that red subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. You guys already know the spiel. Clocking out for now, but I cannot wait to catch you all in my next video.